Good morning and welcome to the CnArcher update for June. Thank you for taking some time to keep up to date with what's new in CnArcher. So for those of you that are new to CnArcher, I'd like to just provide a brief overview and then we'll move into what's new. CnArcher is a mobile installer app that currently helps simplify installations of PMP subscriber modules. The app at the moment is an Android app, and at the moment is compatible with the PMP, Cambium PMP product line. It provides a number of benefits. It can eliminate the need to pre-configure, and it rather than carrying a laptop outdoors during your installation, it eliminates the need for that. And when you use it with the dongle, a third-party battery-powered PoE Wi-Fi dongle, you can get your SM installed and verify that the installation is good before taking time to run your cabling and do the final, electrical connections, etc. It also makes the process easier for an installer to learn rather than having to learn all of the details in the device screens. The amount of information on the app is reduced. And if you're using it in conjunction, if you're using CnArcher in conjunction with cnMaestro, then you have the option of applying a template configuration at the end of the workflow, and you can push, the final provisioning. In terms of the workflow itself, the app is capable of upgrading the device software. It can reduce your channel scan list to speed your AP evaluation times. It can enter any necessary security credentials so it can get connections to the APs. It simplifies the alignment with a graphical approach, runs link tests, and as we mentioned before, sets the configuration. And by the end of the workflow, the device is connected and should be able to pass user traffic on your network. Again, CnArcher does work in conjunction with cnMaestro, but cnMaestro is not required. There are some benefits to using it with cnMaestro in the sense that you have the option to push your template configuration at the end of the workflow, so you can finish your provisioning, and it also has the benefit that if you are using cnMaestro, then using CnArcher will automatically onboard your SMs into the management system. And one last detail is that by its default operation, CnArcher does not require cellular connectivity to work. At the beginning of the workflow, the app talks exclusively to the subscriber module, and then once the SM is attached to the network and can pass user traffic, the app switches over and talks to cnMaestro for the final configuration and onboarding. So in order to communicate with the SM, the app does rely on your mobile device's Wi-Fi interface. So you can use, we've tested with the PowerLink dongle, which has the added benefit of powering up the SM, but any standard Wi-Fi AP that's in bridge mode is sufficient to pass traffic and establish the communication. Our last CnArcher webinar was put on by Dave Geithner from Cambium, and he did a nice job of walking through the actual workflow step by step. So if you're just starting out with CnArcher, this is a great webinar to watch to kind of get comfortable with the workflow. Search on YouTube for CnArcher wireless broadband installation made easy. Okay, so as far as where we are today with CnArcher, the current release is version 1.0, and on your Android app, if you have, or on the Google Play Store, if you have opted in for beta, then you would automatically be updated to CnArcher version 1.1, which is currently in beta. In a moment, I'll talk through the new features that are introduced in 1.1. We often get questions about iOS and ePMP. So the updates for that are that iOS is coming along, and it should be released in approximately the July timeframe. And ePMP is trailing behind a bit, running closer towards the end of Q3. So what's new in the current beta version that we have of 1.1? This is a walkthrough of the new features, and I'll go through them one by one, but we have a quick align mode. We allow you to handle non-default CnMP community strings, added an installation summary feature, the ability to import and export all of your CnArcher settings so that they can be shared between installers. We've created a work order feature, and we'll go through that. Some shortcuts and some additional minor enhancements listed at the end. So let's go through those one by one. The quick align feature. So the purpose of this is that sometimes you're visiting a site where the SM is already installed and service is being provided, but you may not need to start through the whole workflow with software upgrade and provisioning, etc. But you may just need to adjust the alignment of the SM. And in this case, the features that the workflow steps that it goes through are simply alignment, link test to verify the performance, and then it provides an installation summary. So, it skips through setting all of the security credentials, running through AP evaluation and cnMaestro onboarding. So it's a quicker install. In the past, CnArcher assumed that you were working with an out-of-the-box SM. So for some customers, either on a returning site visit, like the one I just described, the SM may have a non-default CnMP community string, or some customers apply a golden config to their devices before they go to the field. And in that case, they may be using non-default CnMP community strings on their devices. So now by going to the PMP settings, you can set it to your own custom community string. The installation summary is generated automatically whenever you finish an install or even a quick align. And it provides just a nice summary of anything that was configured on the SM from CnArcher, as well as some basic details. It also, like device name, MSN, Mac, etc. It also captures any link test results. So all of this can be archived so that the next time you get a customer support call, you have a reference point to at least how things were performing when the installation was actually completed. There's on the installation summary page, there's a share icon at the top, and you can send your summaries via email. So if you have some sort of archive email address within your business operations, then they can be archived there. So in CnArcher, there's when you're first getting started, there's a number of settings that typically would be common amongst installers. So things like the cnMaestro URL, your channel scan list, possibly your WPA or any sort of security credentials, AAA settings. So rather than having each installer enter all of these by hand, we've created a feature where you can export your cnMaestro or CnArcher settings, and you can import them into your colleague's CnArcher app. So the way you would do this is on the previous screen, we showed the option to export. And when you export it, the contents will be in a JSON format. So you can go to any third-party QR code generator, such as the one that we list here, the goqr.me, and just paste your JSON text in, and it'll generate a graphical QR code. So if you send that to your other installers, then in their CnArcher page app, if they click on import, their camera app will open up. They can scan the QR code and all of the settings will be inherited. In this settings, all of the settings are transferred except the cnMaestro username and password. For security purposes, we leave those out. And the assumption is that each installer may have their own. So you can share this and each installer simply just needs to enter their cnMaestro username and password in their app, and they should be good to go. So the work order feature is intended to simplify the installation of an individual SM. The main purpose is to allow someone in advance, maybe an admin, or if you integrate it with a backend system for it to be automated. But all of the things that normally would get entered manually in CnArcher, such as device name, IP address, if you're using a static IP, etc., all of these details can be set in the work order. And for demonstration purposes, we've created a web page called the CnArcher work order page. And you can, this is provided for demonstration purposes, you can fill out this information and click submit, and it will generate both the QR code as well as the JSON content below. If you print this out or include this on your, hand it to your installer, then they can scan this information in and they can store their work orders in CnArcher. And when they get to a particular site, the work orders that need to be completed will be sorted by distance from their current location. So, you know, the one that they're currently at would be at the top of the list, and they can click Start Install, and all of the details would be pre-populated in the CnArcher workflow. So they wouldn't need to enter anything by hand. There, within when using CnArcher, there's an option for editable or automated within the workflow. If the workflow is set for automated, this just means that when the installer is going through the actual steps of the installation, none of the fields are displayed. Everything is just kind of clicking next, next, next to step through the process. Okay, we've introduced some shortcuts, and what this means is from your CnArcher app icon, if you long press it, you'll see some quick start options, and you can drag and drop any one of these four or all of them onto your home screen, and then you can quickly jump to that part of the CnArcher app. So as I mentioned earlier, we've improved the radius AAA settings. In particular, if you're using radius, we've now added things support for setting phase 1, phase 2 identity and realm parameters. When running an AP scan or an AP evaluation in CnArcher, you would typically see a result similar to what's shown in this screenshot here, which is showing the AP MAC color code frequency and channel bandwidth. So with now with this new feature, if you're using CnArcher with cnMaestro, CnArcher will automatically grab the device names of your PMP access points, and so the installer would be presented with the AP device name as well as the MAC address, just to provide a little more context. And lastly, we've improved the Wi-Fi settings with CnArcher. Most customers would continue to use the default option, which is let CnArcher manage your Wi-Fi. And this means that the default operation is that CnArcher would use a static IP address for its Wi-Fi interface that is in the same subnet as your SM LAN. And it would talk directly to the SM. Then once the SM is registered to the AP and the SM can pass user traffic, CnArcher would switch its Wi-Fi interface to DHCP mode, would get an IP address assigned from your network, and at that point it would contact cnMaestro for any onboarding or any operations associated with cnMaestro. Some customers have scenarios where their network may not assign an IP address to the mobile device at that point. So if that's the case, we've added the option for select CnArcher is not managing Wi-Fi. And in that case, the installer is just responsible for making sure that when they start their CnArcher workflow, that their SSID Wi-Fi SSID interface is on the same subnet as the SM, and then if they need to, they can switch to cellular or something to contact cnMaestro. So that's kind of an overview of everything that's new. Just a reminder that CnArcher does have, in the main settings menu, does have a demo mode that allows you to experiment with the app and the various steps in the sequence by simulating the presence of a 5 gigahertz PMP SM. And you can enable and disable demo mode from the main menu. Please check out and keep up to date with the CnArcher forum. It's under Cambium Forums Planning and Management. So where we have cnMaestro, there's also a separate forum for CnArcher, and that's where you can find our quick start guide. And we have the release notes for both the 1.0 and the 1.1 beta versions of CnArcher. And those are all of the updates. Okay, so this is the demo mode that I was just referring to. And if I click here on the top left, I can see I'm running the beta version, because at the bottom I see version 1.1. .10, so that tells me that I have the beta version. You'll notice the quick align. If I choose quick align, it's immediately ready for alignment and skips over the AP evaluation and any of the configuration settings. So here's the work order feature. So I can see that I have at the top one work order that needs to be completed, and at the bottom I have the history of the work orders that are completed. If I wanted to edit the work order, I could click on the edit icon, and I can either edit it or just see what is being configured. The customer ID field is simply there is a reference back to your CRM or billing system, so you can link this record to that. And some of the information like name, phone number, address are not necessarily used by CnArcher. They're there. Well, they're there to provide context for the installer and also to know how close he is to the install site. Subscriber module settings would actually get configured on the device. So device name, the installer can set device height. If he does, this would get recorded in cnMaestro as well. And then the rest of the all of the standard settings that are available from CnArcher itself. A note for the cnMaestro onboarding fields. At the moment, these are free text fields, but if you're attempting to use this with cnMaestro, then you need to make sure that the text values that you type in here for software firmware version or template match exactly the strings that you have in cnMaestro. If your templates are using, if your templates in cnMaestro are using variables, then this also supports variables as well. In this case, I'm showing editing of the work order within CnArcher. The more likely case is that for demonstration purposes, you would either use the website that we've created, which is, let me bring that up here. So it's www.cambiumnetworks.com, cnArcher-work-order. So again, this is a site that's intended to show how you could create something similar if you wanted to automate CnArcher with your own backend systems. Eventually, our intent is to provide this functionality within cnMaestro, but that's not something that's actively being worked on at the moment. So by filling all of this in, or the applicable fields at the end, you could generate a QR code, and then you could share that, include that on a work order that you give to your installers. Okay, so that concludes the update for CnArcher, and I don't see any questions. I'll wait a moment to see if there are any questions. Okay, all right. The first question that we received is there a timeline for when CnArcher will work with APs that have VLAN set? I don't have the answer to that right now, but we will follow up and post an update on the CnArcher forum for that. The next question is, can you go over firmware updating within CnArcher? Sure. Okay, so there's two ways that you could accomplish firmware update. You can do it directly from CnArcher to the device. And in that case, if we go to the main screen and then settings, we have our cnMaestro settings at the top, and then the PMP settings. and then our software images. So by clicking on software images, I'll hit the refresh to see if there's any new ones. Okay, so we just pulled down, by refreshing that, we were just able to see that there's a new version available. And at the moment, it looks like I haven't downloaded any of these locally to my phone. So I happen to have Wi-Fi connectivity. So I'm going to download this, and I can store it locally on the phone. Okay, so now at this point, we've stored the software version locally, and what this enables us to do is CnArcher has a minimum software version that's required. I believe it's 15.1.1 on the device. So in scenarios where the device is running an older version, CnArcher will detect that and will prompt the user to update their device to a newer version. And in that case, I would be able to apply this version that I'm am storing locally on the phone. So that's the first scenario. So at the moment, it can only be done when the device is running a minimum, something that's below the minimum required software version. After version 1.1 is released, the next version of CnArcher will allow the installer to automatically trigger a software update. So in that case, even if the device is running something that's acceptable from CnArcher's perspective, but is not yet, but isn't what your ISP wants to run, the installer would be able to trigger it himself. The second way to do software upgrade today is if you're using cnMaestro with CnArcher, if you've tied your cnMaestro account to your CnArcher account. So again, that's in the settings, and then you choose whether or not you're doing cloud or on-premises, and then you would type in your cnMaestro login, password, and onboarding key. If you set up CnArcher to work with cnMaestro, then at the end of the workflow, when you get to the cnMaestro page, it'll provide you a pull-down menu for all of the software versions that are available in your cnMaestro account, and you can upgrade there. So, so for CnArcher version 1.0 and 1.1, it would be beneficial to make sure that your CnArcher or cnMaestro is configured so that you could, push whatever firmware version you'd like. Okay, thank you for those questions, and I don't see any additional questions. So again, thank you for joining our webinar, and have a good day.